For most of his life, Daniel Brooks felt like he was running a race no one had officially invited him to. At 36, living in Phoenix, Arizona, Daniel had a decent job in IT support, a reliable car, and a routine that looked stable from the outside. But inside, he felt like he was constantly falling behind people younger than him, behind society's expectations, and most of all, behind his own potential. You see, Daniel wasn't really chasing success. He was chasing validation. He was chasing proof. Proof that he mattered, that he wasn't wasting his life. Every scroll on his social media feed made him feel smaller. Old classmates were winning. New job titles, new homes, new lifestyles flashed across his screen, each one a silent judgment on his own progress. Daniel didn't even want luxury. He just wanted a sign that he was on the right track. So, he did what many of us do. He worked harder, but not smarter. He said yes to every project, every request, every opportunity to be seen. He stayed late, sent emails at all hours, and over-explained every single one of his actions, hoping someone, anyone, would notice his effort. But slowly and surely, a deep, bone-weary exhaustion began to replace his ambition. He was running on fumes, fueled only by the faint hope of external approval. The problem, which so many of us face but rarely talk about, wasn't that Daniel lacked discipline. He was incredibly disciplined. The problem was that he lacked direction. His entire life was structured around showing others that he was valuable. And here's the dangerous truth. When your life is built on proving yourself to others, you never feel finished. You never feel enough, because external proof always expires. The applause fades, the likes disappear, and you're left needing another hit of validation and us to feel okay. The moment that exposed this fragile foundation came on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Daniel's manager called him into his office. Daniel's heart quickened, hoping this was the recognition he'd been working so hard for. But it wasn't. His manager informed him that a promotion he'd been vying for went to someone else. Someone newer, someone calmer, someone who seemed more focused. Daniel nodded politely, said all the right things, and walked out of the office with his head held high. But the moment he sat down in his car, his hands started shaking. It wasn't anger he felt. Not really. It was the cold, terrifying shock of realization. He had spent years sacrificing his time, his energy, his peace of mind to prove his value. And in the end, he was still seen as replaceable. The entire structure he had built his self-worth on crumbled in an instant. That night, sitting at his desk, feeling completely hollowed out, Daniel wrote a single question on a sticky note. Who am I building this for? He stuck it right above his computer monitor. The answer hit him with the force of a physical blow. It wasn't for himself. It wasn't for his future. It was for the fleeting, imaginary opinions of other people. That was the turning point. Daniel made a quiet decision to stop chasing applause, not because putting in effort was pointless, but because he finally understood that effort without alignment is just a fast track to burnout. He didn't make a dramatic announcement. He didn't quit his job or declare a grand reinvention on social media. He did something much quieter, much more powerful. He started by simply stopping. He stopped overcommitting. He started saying no. Instead of trying to master 10 different skills to impress 10 different people, he chose one skill he was genuinely interested in and decided to master it for himself. And for the first time in years, his energy felt focused. It felt like his own. He created a new personal rule. No explaining. No proving. Only progress. He buried himself in his chosen skill, studying deeply, practicing deliberately, and tracking his results honestly. He wasn't doing it for praise anymore. He was doing it for pride. And as he did this, something powerful and unexpected began to happen. The more he focused on building his own skills, his own foundation, the less he cared about being seen by others. The internal satisfaction he got from his own progress was more potent than any external validation he had ever received. About 3 months into this new approach, Daniel noticed a subtle shift in himself. He found he spoke less in meetings, but when he did, his words carried more weight, more confidence. He moved slower, but with more intention. A fascinating thing happened. People at work started interrupting him less. Not because he was louder or more demanding, but because he had started to carry himself with a quiet self-respect that others could feel. He finally respected himself, so others followed suit. Then, a new internal project opened up. It was a significant opportunity. The old Daniel would have jumped at it desperately, crafting the perfect email, overselling his abilities, practically begging for the role. But the new Daniel approached it strategically. He didn't oversell. He didn't plead. He simply showed his work. He presented the real outcomes he had achieved, the clear thinking behind his process. The interview felt calm. For the very first time in his professional life, Daniel wasn't trying to win someone's approval. He was offering tangible value. And here's the part of the story that really matters. Daniel didn't get the role. The old him would have been crushed. He would have spiraled into self-doubt, convinced it was proof of his inadequacy. But this time, it was different. It stung for a moment, but it didn't break him. Because he realized something profound. Rejection doesn't hurt nearly as much when your entire identity is on trial. His value as a person wasn't tied to this one outcome. So, instead of spiraling, he calmly asked for feedback, identified areas to improve, and simply kept building. 6 months passed. 6 months of quiet, consistent, focused work. Then, another opportunity appeared, but this time, he didn't have to apply. Leadership reached out directly to him, not because he was the loudest person in the room, but because he had become the most reliable. Through his consistent, high-quality work, he had built a reputation for competence and dependability without ever seeking the spotlight. Daniel accepted a new role that perfectly aligned with his strengths and his vision for the future. The pay raise was nice, of course, but what mattered more, what truly changed everything, was the feeling of being grounded. He finally felt solid. He was standing on a foundation he had built for himself, brick by brick. Daniel learned a life-altering truth the hard way, so maybe we don't have to. If you live your life constantly trying to prove yourself to others, you will burn out. It's an endless, unwinnable game. But if you live to build yourself your skills, your character, your integrity, you will eventually break through. So here is the final message. Stop asking the world to notice you. Stop screaming for attention. Instead, turn inward. Build something so solid, so real, so valuable that you don't need anyone else's permission to believe in yourself again. Because that is the moment everything truly changes. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing for more content that helps you build a more intentional life. See you in the next one.